Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the Week 2 college football games for Saturday, September 9th, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your college football picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at Pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Week 2 in college football. First up, we see the battle for the Cy-Hawk Trophy as Iowa takes on Iowa State. Iowa is currently a 4-point favorite on the road, total right around 36 points, and we see a 3:30 Eastern start time on Fox for this one. Now, we see this rivalry series every year, and there's no surprise to see this total where it is. Super low total, one of the lowest you'll see all season in college football, because the under is 16-2 in the last 18 meetings between these two teams. So 16 of the last 18 games in this rivalry series has gone under the total. I would automatically lean towards the under here again, even though you don't have a lot of wiggle room at 36 points. But I also think Iowa wins this game and covers the number. I'm really concerned with Iowa State's offense. I do think there's a lot of question marks, especially in the passing game. We saw Week 1 against Northern Iowa, an FCS opponent, only 116 passing yards from Iowa State. Not what you want to see. Only 11 first downs and 250 total yards in that game. Yes, they scored 30 points and they won, by 3 touchdowns. But now facing Iowa, one of the strongest defenses in the country, I do think Iowa State struggles mightily offensively. Iowa, I think they're improved offensively this year, even though Cade McNamara is dealing with an injury. He wasn't able to do too much in that first week, and he was even uncertain to play in that first week against Utah State. He was still a really solid game manager in that one. 2 passing touchdowns, right around 200 passing yards, 57% completion. I think Iowa's offense does enough in this game to win it and cover the number in the end. And also, you got to mention, the home team has actually not done too well in this series. Straight up, they're only 2-8 in the last 10 games, and they're 3-6-1 against the spread in the last 10 games as well, the home team. So I'm going to take the road team here. I'm going to take Iowa and lay the points. Next up, we see UCF taking on Boise State. This one's 7 o'clock Eastern on Fox Sports 1. UCF is a 3.5-point favorite. Currently, total is 58 points right now. Now, the one big key word I'm looking to avoid in Week 2 of college football, the same thing goes for Week 2 in the NFL, is overreacting. You don't want to overreact to one single performance all season, especially the first performance of the year with the Week 1 games between these two teams. And we had some polar opposite performances from these two in Week 1 as UCF destroyed Kent State, 56-6 final score. They covered the big number. I think they were laying like 36 points in that game. It was a demolition derby. UCF ran for almost 400 yards in that one, 8.5 yards per carry. It was an all-around perfect performance from UCF. On the other side, Boise State got crushed by Washington, 56-19, the final score. On the road, Boise State gives up almost 600 yards, a ton of points, a lot of mistakes from Boise State, some turnovers. It was an ugly game from Boise State. However, when you look at those two games, UCF played Kent State, one of the weaker teams in the MAC, one of the weaker defenses, a new head coach there. It was a really good spot for UCF to earn that blowout, feel-good win at the Bounce House, a very tough place to play. Boise State was on the road against a ranked team, an experienced team with an experienced quarterback and one of the better quarterbacks in college football. And Boise State still put up over 400 yards in that game, 21 first downs. The first downs were 22-21 in favor of Washington, so only a +1 gain there. It was a few mistakes offensively that really held Boise State back. The defense was also not great, in the secondary especially, but the run defense held Washington under 100 rushing yards, and that's the key for me looking at this matchup. UCF now has to go on the road toward, across the country basically against Boise State, one of the tougher home field advantages in mid-major college football. UCF's going to look to run the ball as they did 46 times against Kent State for almost 9 yards per carry, but Boise State's run defense was strong. It's been strong. It was strong last year, giving up only 3.5 yards per carry to opposing teams in 2022. So I like John Reese Plumlee, a quarterback for UCF, but I think he's more of a game manager, not really a game changer. I think Boise State's a lot better than what we saw in that Week 1 performance. I think we're getting value on them because of that Week 1 performance. I think, the betting market's just overreacting. I'm going to take those points here with Boise State. Wouldn't be surprised to see them earn the outright W. Next up, we see Miami, Ohio taking on UMass. This one's going to be 3:30 Eastern on ESPN+. We see UMass as a 7-point underdog at home in the home opener and a total right around 43.5 points currently. I think UMass has already proved it's a much better team, right? This season compared to last year. I think the program's heading in the right direction under Don Brown. We've seen UMass put up more than 300 yards in their first 2 games offensively, something we didn't see very often last year. In fact, it only happened twice in 2022 for UMass, and they've already matched their total this year. So we saw them earn the outright upset win against New Mexico State on the road in the first game. They were getting like 7 points in that one, 41-30, the final score. Then they lost and did not cover against Auburn the next game. Their defense struggled in that one, but it was really just a few key mistakes. They were -2 in the turnover differential, but UMass still put up 301 yards. They ran for 5.2 yards per carry. Tyson Pomachan was a lot more effective on the ground than through the air in that game, which is expected against a very strong Auburn secondary. But I really like what I'm seeing from Tyson Pomachan. I think this offense is the best that we've seen it in years. And I just don't understand why UMass is such a sizable underdog at home. UMass played so poorly on the road, not just last year, but years prior. But at home, they've been a decent team. We saw them earn their only victory at home last year against Stony Brook. And Miami, Ohio, Chuck Barton's teams have had a history of not really putting too much weight into non-conference games. This is a team and a coach and a program that really, looks at that MAC conference schedule seriously. They look to win that MAC conference every year. But the non-conference games, like we saw week 1 against Miami, 38-3 blowout loss. Last year against Kentucky and Cincinnati, 37-13, 38-17. In 2021 against Cincinnati on the road, 49-14 loss. They lost to Minnesota on the road. They lost to Army on the road. This team has not played too well in non-conference road games. So as a favorite here, I certainly wouldn't want to lay this many points with Miami, Ohio. I think UMass is a live dog. Give me the points here with the Minutemen. Next up, we see Air Force taking on Sam Houston. This one's going to be 8 o'clock Eastern on CBS Sports Network. Air Force is a 2-touchdown favorite on the road, total right around 37.5 points. Now, to me, this is as brutal of a matchup as you can get for Sam Houston. I think what would make it worse is if they were on the road. Now, luckily, that's going to be their home opener here, so there should be some excitement for the program. But, last week we saw them get shut out by BYU. I knew the offense was not going to be great, but scoring no points and only less than 200 total yards against BYU, not what we expected. The run game did not get going at all. Shoemaker struggled yet again, giving up 3 interceptions in that one. And now you're facing an Air Force team that last year, 13 points per game given up, and a lot of that was because they controlled the time possession with the triple option offense, but still, only 254 total yards given up last year per game. Very good defense, strong secondary, and first week this season giving up only 9 first downs and 156 total yards to Robert Morris in a blowout 42-7 win. Sam Houston, I think we're going to get a lot of value on them, just like we did in first week where they covered the number for us, and we're going to get value with them later this season, but preparing for a triple option offense takes a lot of preparation, and you're getting only a week to do so. You didn't really face many. Last year, you didn't face any triple option offenses. To me, it's just a really tough spot for the defense, and the offense we know is not going to really help us with too many favors either. I think Air Force runs away with this game, literally. I think the triple option runs the ball efficiently, basically from the first quarter to the fourth quarter. I think Air Force, if they score 3 touchdowns, it should be enough to cover this game, honestly. So give me Air Force. I'm going to lay the points. Next up, we see Memphis and Arkansas State. This one's 7 o'clock Eastern on ESPN+. Arkansas State is a 21.5-point underdog. We're going to see a total right around 58.5 points currently. This is another one of those games where I don't want to overreact to a Week 1 performance. Arkansas State got crushed to Oklahoma, 73-0. It was on the road against a very good team, a very good quarterback in Dylan Gabriel. I thought Arkansas State would definitely put up more of a fight than losing by 73, but it was a game that got away from them early, and they never looked back. I do think we see a much better performance here, especially at home where Arkansas State won its 3 games last year, and facing a team in Memphis that Arkansas State covered against Memphis last season, getting 14.5 points. They only lost the game by 12, and it was only a 4-point game at halftime. So I think we see more of a competitive game here from Arkansas State. I like Memphis. I think especially defensively, this team has improved from last year, and it's why I lean towards the under in this game as well. Last year's matchup between these two was a high-scoring shootout, but we see a total for this one at 58.5 points, I think for good reason. I think Arkansas State's defense a lot better than what we saw from that 73 points given up week 1. I think Memphis has improved there as well. I think we see a close game that Memphis wins, and probably wins by double digits, but not by 21.5 points. Give me the points here with Arkansas State and the under. Next up, we see New Mexico State taking on Liberty. We're going to see a 6 o'clock Eastern start time on ESPN+. Now, Liberty won and covered its first game of the season against Bowling Green. It was a 10-point win. Liberty was laying around 8.5 points to the closing number. So they win and cover by about 1.5 points. But in that game, what concerns me about Liberty, especially on the defensive end, is the fact that Liberty was able to force 5 interceptions in that game. They forced 3 of them on Connor Bazelak and 2 of them on Camden Orth, the backup quarterback. And it's great and all. You want your secondary definitely being aggressive and forcing those turnovers. But Bowling Green was also 2 for 12 on third down. It was a horrible efficiency on third down for Bowling Green. They have the turnover issue. They give up 5 interceptions. Yet Liberty still only wins the game by 10 points and only covers the number by 1.5 points. They gave up 19 first downs and over 300 total yards for Bowling Green as well. To me, I think those, we're not going to be able to expect Liberty to force 5 interceptions week after week, especially against an experienced quarterback here in Diego Pavia. I'm a little bit concerned with Liberty in this game. I think they're a little bit overvalued after that, anomaly kind of a performance from their defense. And I think New Mexico State, this team's got 2 games under its belt. They lost to UMass week 1. It was a mistake-ridden game where a lot of turnovers in that one. They sharpened it up. In week 2 against Western Illinois, beating them 58-21. They were a neutral, net zero in the turnover differential, so they sharpened up there. Their defense was strong. Pavia had a great game, almost 400 total passing yards. I think New Mexico State battles in this game. I think they cover the number, if not earn the outright upset, so maybe sprinkle a little bit on the money line, but give me the Aggies plus the points. Next up, we see Wisconsin and Washington State. This one's 7 o'clock Eastern on ABC. Now, Wisconsin last week, it was not the best performance from the Badgers, that's for sure. They didn't cover the number in the end, 38-17. They were laying around 28 points, but still, Wisconsin scored just under 40 points in that game against an FBS opponent, over 500 total yards earned, and they won the game by 21 points despite being -2 in the turnover differential. Tanner Mordecai had 2 interceptions in that game. Wasn't his best game, but we know he has a ton of talent. He still had about 77% completion in that game, and I think he's going to have a big season with Wisconsin. We also know this Wisconsin defense is very, very strong. One of the better ones in the Big Ten. Another program similar to Iowa that perennially has a very good defense. Doesn't necessarily score a ton of points per game each year like last year, 26 points per game. But I think there's big improvements offensively. I think we have the same old good defensive team in Wisconsin. And Washington State, the concern for me is on the line, the offensive line, really. They only ran for 2.4 yards per carry against Colorado State. Yes, they threw for over 400, but you're not facing a Mountain West secondary this week. You're facing one of the tougher defensive teams in Power 5 football. I think Washington State's offense is going to be a little bit too one-dimensional in this game. And this is a rematch. We got to remember from last year's, our revenge game, I should say, for last year's upset win for Washington State, a 17-14 victory outright at Wisconsin. I think this Wisconsin team is a lot better than last year's team. And I think we see Wisconsin get their revenge and earn the win and cover. So give me Wisconsin laying the points. Next up, we see JMU, James Madison, taking on Virginia. This one, an early start time, 12 o'clock Eastern on ESPNU. We see the mid-major team in James Madison as favored on the road against a Power 5 ACC school in Virginia. You don't see it too often, but James Madison, I think, is the much better team here. And, week 1 against Bucknell, I would consider Bucknell one of the weaker FCS programs in college football. So I would have liked to see James Madison run up the score a little bit more in that game, but still, a 38-3 final score is solid. Offense was there. A lot of new skill position players on offense for JMU. So it was nice to see them get going and score almost 40 points in that game. Virginia, they struggled against Tennessee mightily, 49-13 the final score, giving up over almost 500 total yards, 5.5 yards per carry on the ground. The offense could not get going at all. Both on the ground and through the air, only 106 yards passing, 11-24 completion percentage for the quarterbacks in that one. They took 4 sacks. The offensive line struggled. Virginia's offense, I think, is in a really bad place here. I think James Madison's defense holds them to under 300 total yards, and to me, that's enough for a win and cover, laying less than a touchdown, or a touchdown with an extra point at least with JMU. So give me JMU, the Dukes, laying the points on the road. Next up, we see Western Michigan taking on Syracuse at the Carrier Dome. We're going to see Syracuse as a 23.5-point favorite currently, and the total is right around 56 points. Now, it takes a lot to win a game and cover the number when you're laying, over 3 touchdowns. A lot has to go your way, but I think there's a lopsided matchup. I think Syracuse wins this game and covers the number. We've seen these two teams play a couple of years ago, back in 2018 and 2019. One of those games at the Carrier Dome, the other one on the road at Western Michigan, and Syracuse put up 50-plus points in both of those games. And it shows you, the MAC not really known for their defense, and I do think Western Michigan, one of the weaker defenses in the MAC this season. Also, the offense, I think, has a lot of concern, especially on the offensive line and the run game. Western Michigan, I just don't think they're going to be able to move the ball much in this ball game. Syracuse, a very strong defense last year, holding opponents to 23 points per game with a pretty tough strength of schedule last year. Syracuse played Florida State, they played Clemson, they played Notre Dame, they played Pittsburgh. So, even though they didn't have the strongest non-conference schedule last year, they played some of the better teams in the ACC and still held those opponents to 23 points per game overall. And this is a really tough team to beat at the Carrier Dome. Usually one of the better home field advantages in the ACC. They usually pack the dome even for these types of games, non-conference play. Syracuse won 65-0 their first game of the season at home Schrader's an experienced quarterback. He should be able to move the ball at will. The defense makes enough stops to win this game. I see a 31-point win for Syracuse, so I'm going to lay the points here with the orange. And the final game we're to talk about for Week 2 in college football, it is Oregon and Texas Tech in Lubbock, 7 o'clock Eastern for this one on Fox. Should be a great game. And I do think Texas Tech bounces back from its upset loss at Wyoming. I think Wyoming going into the season was severely undervalued. I think there's a really good Wyoming team, especially defensively. But I think they've also made some upgrades offensively. I think Peasley's a much better quarterback than what he was last year. But beyond that, I think Texas Tech, we saw them go up 17-0 in that game. The game got away from them in the end, but that was on the road. Now you're going back to Lubbock, a really tough place to play. You got Texas Tech quarterback Tyler Shuck, who was playing his former team in Oregon. He was a member of the Ducks a couple of years ago. He's a really experienced quarterback. I think he's better than what we saw at Wyoming. I also think Texas Tech's offense gets going on the ground. They've really struggled to run the ball. No surprise. Wyoming's got a really good run defense, but Oregon last week, even against Portland State in that 81-7 blowout, still gave up 4 yards per carry to the opposing team. I think we see Texas Tech hang in there in this game and potentially pull off the upset over a ranked team. Would be a huge win to get them back in the conversation, because this was a team that had really big expectations in terms of a Big 12 potential dark horse to win the conference. Even though these aren't conference games, this would be a big morale booster. Give me the Texas Tech Red Raiders plus the points with a sprinkle on the money line to end the night. And that's it. Those are the games for Week 2 in college football. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your football picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.